Included with Spectrum TV Select plans and stream across your devices.
Wow, you guys are lifesavers.
That's what you think.
In action.
The Walking Dead Dead City, exclusively on AMC and AMC+.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
Hello, I'm Robert Guadarrama. Here is your Spectrum News in 90. Iran launches retaliatory strikes targeting Israel, further escalating tensions between the two countries. The response comes after Israel launched new strikes early Friday local time, targeting nuclear sites as well as military leaders. The U.S. says it is assisting in intercepting Iranian missiles and drones.
We had to operate before it's too late, before they have weapons of mass destruction, and that's exactly what we did.
President Trump is warning Iran to agree to a nuclear deal before it's too late. Secretary of State Marco Rubio asserted the U.S. was not involved, adding American forces in the region are a central concern. President Trump says he is aware of Israel's plan, warning Tehran of a lot more to come.
The president was very clear that he was aware of the plans and that we have a uncontestable right to defend our country.
Los Angeles leaders say a curfew will likely remain in place for a few more days as anti-ICE protests continue downtown, as well as in big cities nationwide. A federal appeals court is allowing the deployment of National Guard troops to continue in Los Angeles for now. And that's a look at your Spectrum News in 90.
To the big deal. I'm Errol Lewis, national political anchor at Spectrum News. We launched this program to focus on the future of our country and its people. This week, the big deal is the ongoing protests across the country against the Trump administration's immigration raids. While many have been peaceful, protesters did clash with authorities in some cities, leading to hundreds of arrests, including in Los Angeles, where demonstrations have been underway for more than a week. In response, President Trump sent thousands of National Guardsmen and hundreds of Marines over the loud objections of California Governor Gavin Newsom. Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, held a news conference in L.A. to address the situation as more protests are expected throughout the weekend, along with national demonstrations in all 50 states on a so-called Day of Resistance under the banner of, quote, No Kings. Here's a little bit of what Secretary Noem had to say.
We are not going away. We are staying here to liberate this city from the socialist and the burdensome leadership that this governor and that this mayor have placed on this country and what they have tried to insert into this city.
Joining me now with more are two top political analysts. Jason Fechner is an anchor for Spectrum News 1 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Alex Cohen is a political anchor for Spectrum News Plus based in Los Angeles. And Alex, we have heard a lot of political back and forth about whether it is legal for President Trump to take control of the National Guard if the governor of the state objects, which is what's happening there in California. Tell us from a local level, though, how are people feeling about the arrival of federal troops and the raids in search of immigrants and so forth?
There are very mixed feelings, Errol. On the one hand, keep in mind, this is exactly what President Trump campaigned on, the largest mass deportation effort ever. And it's been hard to get those numbers because they've pretty much shut down crossings at the border. So for those who elected the president based on this issue, they're probably quite content. That said, here in Southern California, we have seen massive resistance to the these efforts. People are truly terrified. I was texting earlier this week with one undocumented immigrant. He said his brother-in-law has been detained since late February. They don't know where exactly he is, and he saw ICE agents on his street and was fearful of leaving his house. And there's a real economic impact to this. We are talking about roughly 1 million undocumented immigrants here in the Los Angeles area. These are people who take care of our children, tend to our yards. They pick produce not just for our area, but the entire region and even the world. So the impact of this really cannot be underestimated.
Okay, so now, Jason, the governors of Illinois and New York and Minnesota, the state next to yours, all traveled to Capitol Hill this week to defend their state's immigration policies before the Oversight Committee of the House of Representatives. And the governors were weighing in on the president's deployment of National Guard troops, calling it federal overreach. But do states have the right to make their own immigration policies?
Errol, great to see you. Not according to New York Governor Kathy Hochul there, who basically told Republicans on that committee that she is sick of them essentially putting immigration policy into their laps, saying that immigration enforcement is a federal responsibility. And she also fired back that while she has been governor there of New York, convicted criminals, 1,300 in all and counting so far, have been turned over to ICE. So these blue state governors argue that they are essentially doing their best to follow federal law. They are not participating in any sort of mass roundups, of course, but if and when there are convicted criminals, that they could potentially be turned over to ICE there. And Governor J.B. Pritzker down just south of us there in Illinois essentially said that Illinois follows the law and they expect the federal government to follow the law as well. So obviously a very tense committee hearing there this week in Washington between these blue state governors and especially these Republican House members there. And we're going to see this back and forth obviously continue in the weeks and months ahead.
Okay, so now, Alex, this week, Senator Alex Padilla of California was forcibly removed and handcuffed at a press conference with the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. We heard from her earlier, and Padilla, it turns out to be the latest of several elected officials to be arrested while protesting the Trump administration. It is especially meaningful for this particular senator, though, right, of all people to get detained over these issues?
Yeah, that is right, Errol. As they say, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. Alex Padilla, folks may not know, began his career at MIT, where he was planning on becoming an engineer. However, back in the 1990s, there was a ballot measure, Prop 187, that sought to basically eliminate public services for immigrants. That really galvanized the Latino political movement here in California, including a then young Alex Padilla, who of course then winds up becoming a campaign manager for many prominent Democrats. So he knows how to make political plays, and now he is our senior senator representing California. This clash that happened this week is such a fascinating incident because one thing happened, it was caught on video, the entire country saw it, but how it's been interpreted is very much up to debate. Some saw it as political theater by the Democrat and a really rude affront to the Homeland Security Secretary, and others said that this was ridiculous that a standing U.S. senator was pinned to the ground and a real symbol of a turning point in our democracy, Errol.
Okay. Jason, recent opinion polls have shown that Trump's approval rating is falling, including on the issue of immigration, which had been one of his strongest areas. Everybody wants our laws enforced, obviously, but is this new disenchantment more about the methods that are being used?
Errol, it's a great question. I think two things are really in play here. And let's first talk about the first one, unfulfilled expectations. And I'm not saying for the 35 to 40% of hardcore Trump supporters who are in it to win it with him regardless. I'm talking about that 10% of voters out there who might have supported him this past November, helping to win re-election, of course. They're looking at the campaign promises made. The war between Russia and Ukraine continues out there. The economy is still very uncertain. Gas prices necessarily haven't fallen off as Trump promised they would from day one out there. So they're wondering, when is this all finally going to come to fruition, as they worry about the potential of a recession out there as well. And then when you get to the immigration front, it's one thing to say that we want undocumented immigrants, or illegal aliens, as Donald Trump would call them, deported immediately and out of this country. But as we see more of these mass roundups take place, more of them are being caught on camera, and you're seeing, a woman basically picking up her kids at school, or the roundup of workers at a Home Depot. And I think that that's resonating with that smaller wedge of voters out there, and that's impacting how they feel, at least about how this is all being carried out to this point out there. Obviously, approval ratings ebb and flow, so we will wait to see how this all kind of transpires over the foreseeable future out there and whether or not that impacts Trump's approval numbers and whether or not he can get them turned around anytime soon.
Okay, Jason Fechner, Alex Cohen, thank you both for joining me. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll take a closer look at federal cuts to medical research for cancer and much more. That's next on The Big Deal.
Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Bring it to the party. Bring it to the top. Bring it to the party. Never gonna stop.
Enjoy. Unwind. Connect. With Spectrum TV On Demand. From the latest hit movies you've been waiting to watch to your favorite comfort shows and more. All available instantly for you to stream. Create the all-around entertainment experience you've always wanted with Spectrum TV On Demand. Browse over 80,000 on-demand titles today.
Being a cowboy, well, I don't know anything different. I had a very successful career. Life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally. And then I got hurt. I dug into mental health. I wanted to be better as a person. I start my day with a workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Making those decisions. Not what are the decisions, but who is making them. Right. You, Doge, OMB, someone else?
So because there's a range, there's the different answer for some of those. So
okay, so all of the above?
Well, no, not necessarily. It depends on the specifics we're talking about. So if I may, so there's change in priorities for the NIH to move away from politicized science. I've made those decisions.
We are back with The Big Deal. That was the director of the National Institutes of Health, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, appearing before a Senate committee earlier this week, where he defended a proposed $18 billion slashing of his own agency's budget. That accounts for about 40% of the agency's current funding. Under the Trump administration, the NIH has terminated nearly 1,400 research grants, and another 1,000 projects have been delayed. We are already seeing the effects on medical research, with the cuts potentially delaying progress in areas including research to find cures for Alzheimer's, substance abuse, and cancer. Scientific professional organizations and advocacy groups are sounding the alarm about the toll all of these cuts will take. Spectrum News political reporter Erin Kelly has more in this report.
President Donald Trump is proposing a more than 26% cut to the budget of the Department of Health and Human Services, a move cancer advocacy groups say would be devastating to the fight against the disease. In March, HHS announced it would reduce its workforce by 20,000 employees, part of a dramatic restructuring that it said would save $1.8 billion. Galen Hayden, a breast cancer survivor, heads Book for Hope, a nonprofit that supports the families of more than 120 children battling cancer, most in Kentucky. Among them, 11-year-old Aubrey Avery, who died from brain cancer in May.
You might not have a child with cancer. Your neighbor might not have one. But I promise you, every elementary school is going to have a child come through with cancer.
The organization also funds pediatric cancer research, like the work of Dr. John Prenzner, a pediatric oncologist and clinical research scientist at the University of Michigan.
We are seeing tremendous improvements over the last 20 years. So the message I would give to anyone in Congress on both sides of the aisle is that this is one of the best investments we can do as a country.
Prenzner's research is also funded by HHS's National Institutes of Health. And while he says he hasn't faced cuts so far, some of his grant funding applications have faced administrative delays. And he's concerned about ongoing and future cuts to cancer research.
What I'm concerned about is the ability to go down to families and say that we can give you the very best, the very newest, and the greatest hope for cure. I'm concerned that we won't be able to make those statements in the future in the same way.
An HHS spokesperson told Spectrum News in a statement, quote, HHS remains committed to advancing cancer research and other serious health conditions. These areas continue to be high priorities for both NIH and HHS. Ongoing investments reflect our dedication to addressing both urgent and long-term health challenges. In Washington, Erin Kelly, Spectrum News.
Joining me now with more is Dr. Harold Varmus, the former director of the National Institutes of Health and the National Cancer Institute. He's a winner of the 1989 Nobel Prize in Medicine for the discovery of cancer genes. And doctor, in a recent opinion article that you wrote about this, you said, and I'm quoting here, "This is a time to reflect on the marvels of science in which America has played a leading role. If the attacks on our scientists and their institutions are allowed to continue, our envisioned future of longer, healthier lives will happen more slowly in other countries or not at all." From your knowledge, doctor, what kinds of medical research grants is the Trump administration targeting?
Well, it's targeting, as your report succinctly indicates, science across the board, and emphasizing, of course, one of the diseases we're most concerned about, which is cancer, but also affecting virtually every disease that is being studied by the 27 institutes and centers at the National Institutes of Health. Moreover, it's cutting off training. It's sending a signal that science is not a desired activity of the U.S. and its government. It's breaking a tradition that dates back to the 1940s, when the federal government began to support research at our universities throughout the country. This is tragic because we're not trying to make America great again under Mr. Trump. We're undoing the greatest things that the country has done.
Yeah, I mean, scientific breakthroughs won the war, literally the Second World War, right?
That's correct.
In addition to disease prevention, which we certainly care a lot about, but you've also written that, moving away from science actually could damage the overall economy, right?
Absolutely. The money invested in the NIH has major returns to commercial entities and to the public, and that's been well documented by economists for years.
This week, more than 300 officials at the NIH, your old outfit, signed a letter called the Bethesda Declaration. It's addressed to the current director of the National Institutes of Health, and it condemns the changes at the agency and what they're calling the politicization of research and the destruction of scientific progress. It's not every day that we see that kind of open resistance by government employees, but do we know if the administration is listening?
Well, it's a little hard to say. I know that not all of these directives come from the new director of NIH himself. They come from above, from his boss at the Department of Health and Human Services and from his higher boss in the White House. And in my view, these are destructive tactics that are undermining the future of the country, because among the things that are being done, it's not simply the deprivation of funds for research, but also signals that or directives that prevent people from abroad to come here to do research. One of the things that's been remarkably successful over the last several decades is the way in which America has been a magnet, attracting the smartest people from all over the world to come to the U.S. and do their best research and contribute to our nation's and the world's good health.
You also said in that recent op-ed articles that everyday Americans, including a lot of our viewers who are watching right now, need to get involved. What do you think they should do?
Well, they need to say that they're distressed by this and that they have aspirations for the country's traditional contributions to the research that fundamentally changes our perception of how organisms work, contributes to basic biology, and that leads to over the long run, the development of the kinds of new therapies we now have for genetic diseases, for cancers, for infectious diseases. These are remarkable advances that were unimaginable 20, 30, 40 years ago. And America is justly proud and widely respected for these things. Do we really want to go back to a time when America is waiting for other countries to be scientifically astute? No, we want to be doing that ourselves, and we have shown that when the country is working together in a humanitarian and an enlightened way, that we make tremendous contributions to the welfare of the world.
Okay, we will continue to follow this story. Thank you very much, Dr. Varmus. Great talking with you.
My pleasure. Thanks for covering this.
Okay. Coming up next on The Big Deal, we're going to keep the focus on the Trump administration's funding cuts. This time we're going to look at the National Weather Service as the 2025 hurricane season gets underway. Stay with us.
For the millions of school-aged children across the country, the state of their schools can have a lasting impact on their health and well-being.
The majority of school districts aren't doing comprehensive regular water quality testing.
As CO2 levels rise in a space, cognitive function takes a direct decline.
We visit 2 school districts working to create safe and healthy environments for their students.
Watch Exploring Your Health, Curing Our Classrooms, available on the Spectrum News app.
Spectrum with Paramount Plus is the entertainment destination.
You're gonna love this.
Getting oil out of the ground's the most dangerous job in the world.
It's so good to see you.
Come on!
Right now, I am in first gear. Would you like to see me shift to 6?
Stream a mountain of the entertainment you love on Paramount Plus, included in Spectrum TV Select plans at no extra cost.
What are you doing in there? What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
You're watching The Big Deal. The 2025 hurricane season has begun, and forecasters are expecting another above-average season in the Atlantic. Scientists are also raising the alarm about massive federal cuts to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the National Weather Service, 2 agencies that provide daily weather forecasts and track extreme weather. As a result, local weather service forecasting offices around the nation are struggling to maintain staff, especially in areas vulnerable to severe weather like Florida and Texas. And with fewer meteorologists on staff, the agency has launched fewer weather balloons that collect the critical data used to predict the creation and path of hurricanes. Joining me now to talk about what all of this will mean for you is Mike Clay, Chief Meteorologist at Spectrum News, Bay News 9 in Tampa. Mike, great to see you. Can you explain how these National Weather Service forecast offices help you and other meteorologists around the country warn local communities about severe weather?
They are very important for knowing the local communities, and they are very important for people like emergency managers. So that's constant communication going back and forth. Media, emergency managers, we're all on the same page, and so it's very difficult to do that when you're dealing with someone who's 1,000, 2,000 miles away. But the local offices have traditionally been very much embedded in their communities that they serve.
Now, you local scientists and forecasters and broadcasters do a great service that we all see, but I wanted to ask you about the hurricane hunters, those daredevil pilots that fly planes directly into the storm to get data to analyze the size and direction and intensity. Because of the layoffs at NOAA, my understanding is that there will be fewer flights this season. What will that mean for you?
Well, hopefully there won't be a storm where we can't fly into. The hurricane hunters from NOAA, based actually here in the Tampa Bay area, they're going to have a few positions open and there may be less money for them to fly. However, the good news is that the Air Force Reserve flies a lot of those missions into hurricanes, and they're based out of Mississippi. So the Air Force Reserve, of course, they're still critical. They're in the military. There haven't been any layoffs, and so they'll be picking up some of the slack and flying more missions. The researchers that are based here in Florida, they may have less money to fly those missions.
Okay, so now during last year's hurricane season, your area, Florida, was hit hard by storms, and I know in Tampa specifically, we saw the roof of Tropicana Field with the Tampa Bay Rays play get blown off by Hurricane Milton. What is the forecast for the state this year?
Well, there's no way to know. It looks like around Florida, pretty much a normal season, but you could have one storm that's impactful. Hurricane Andrew in 1992, we really didn't have anything else, but we all know what Hurricane Andrew did in South Florida. So what we like to say is take it 5, 6, 7 days at a time during hurricane season. Check in with us once a day, twice a day. And, you know, we have great meteorologists, very experienced in the spectrum areas that are impacted by hurricanes. Here on our staff, we've got 5 meteorologists that have been here 20, 25 years. And so we're not going to let anything slip by. If we see something out there, we're going to be talking about it. But on the other hand, don't have hurricane fatigue. Don't get worked up about every little system or everything you see on social media, because if there is something, we'll be talking about it. If not, don't worry about it.
Okay, I feel better knowing that you and your staff is down there, because of course a lot of these storms make their way all the way up the eastern seaboard. Thanks very much, Mike Clay.
Sure.
And thank you all for joining us for this episode of The Big Deal. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned to your local Spectrum station.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
Are you ready for the ultimate entertainment experience? Spectrum is bringing together the streaming apps you love.
Plus, live TV for sports, entertainment, and news. All in one place, across your devices. So no matter when or where you are, it's all here. Spectrum.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on